The first thing everyone noticed was the stain. Not the man wearing the suit. Not the little girl holding his hand. Not the line of luxury cars stretching across the circular driveway of the oceanside mansion. Just the stain. A splash of coffee, dried near the cuff of his navy blue jacket. And that tiny stain was enough to make an entire billionaire family decide exactly who he was. The humiliation began before he even reached the front door. "Staff entrance is around the back." The voice was sharp, cold, and loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Ethan Cole stopped walking. Beside him, his 8-year-old daughter Lily squeezed his hand tighter. The woman speaking wore diamonds worth more than most homes. Her name was Vanessa Harrington, sister of the groom and daughter of one of the richest families in America. Ethan smiled politely. "I think there may be a misunderstanding." Vanessa laughed. "There isn't." Her eyes traveled from his inexpensive watch to his worn shoes. "This event is invitation only." Several guests nearby chuckled. Lily lowered her head. Ethan noticed. That hurt more than the insult. He reached into his pocket. Before he could pull out the invitation, another voice interrupted. "Vanessa, who is this?" An older man approached. Tall. Silver-haired. Powerful. Richard Harrington. The billionaire patriarch himself. The owner of a family empire spanning real estate, banking, energy, and private equity. Vanessa smirked. "Some guy trying to get into the wedding." Richard looked Ethan up and down. His expression hardened. "Security." The word landed like a slap. 2 guards started moving. Lily's eyes widened. "Dad?" Ethan immediately knelt beside her. "It's okay. But we were invited." "I know." Richard crossed his arms. "If you were invited, you'd look like it." Laughter erupted around them. Phones quietly appeared. People loved public embarrassment. Especially when the victim couldn't fight back. Ethan stood slowly. He could have ended everything right there. Could have revealed who he was. Could have shown the invitation. Could have made one phone call. Instead, he chose silence. Because he wanted to see how far they would go. The guards arrived. One of them spoke respectfully. "Sir, we'll need you to leave." Ethan nodded. "Of course." Vanessa smiled victoriously. Richard turned away. Case closed. Or so he thought. As Ethan and Lily walked back toward the parking area, dozens of guests whispered. Some laughed. Some recorded. Nobody stopped them. Nobody defended them. Nobody knew they were watching a man who controlled more than $900 million in investment capital. Nobody knew they were watching the CEO whose signature would determine the future of the Harrington family's largest business expansion. And nobody knew the entire wedding was about to become a disaster. Because Ethan Cole wasn't there by accident. He was there for a meeting. A meeting worth $900 million. 3 years earlier, Ethan had been broke. Completely broke. His wife had died unexpectedly after a medical complication. One moment he was a husband building a small technology company. The next he was a grieving single father struggling to keep the lights on. Investors disappeared. Friends vanished. Competitors circled like sharks. Every expert predicted failure. But Ethan refused to quit. He worked while Lily slept. He coded through nights. He sold his house. Sold his car. Sold almost everything. For 2 years he fought. Then everything changed. His software platform exploded. Major corporations signed contracts. Revenue skyrocketed. Acquisitions followed. Investors lined up. Within 36 months, the struggling founder became one of the youngest CEOs in the country. Yet almost nobody recognized him. Because Ethan hated publicity. No interviews. No magazine covers. No television appearances. He preferred focusing on business and raising Lily. The Harrington family had never seen his face. They only knew the company. And today they were expecting representatives from Cole Ventures to finalize a massive partnership. A partnership Ethan personally approved. A partnership that would transform the Harrington empire. Meanwhile, back at the wedding, champagne flowed freely. Vanessa was still enjoying the story. "I can't believe he actually thought he belonged here." Her friends laughed. Richard chuckled. "Some people don't understand their place." Nearby executives nodded eagerly. Powerful people often attract agreement. Even when they're wrong. Then Richard's phone rang. He glanced at the screen. The smile vanished instantly. It was Michael Grant, Chief Financial Officer of Harrington Capital. Richard answered. What is it? Michael sounded nervous. Sir, have you met Ethan Cole yet? Richard frowned. No. Silence. Then Michael asked a question that changed everything. Is he there? Supposedly. We've been trying to reach him for 30 minutes. Richard's stomach tightened. What do you mean? The deal documents are ready. Okay? We can't proceed without him. Richard felt something cold crawl up his spine. Why? Another pause. Because Michael couldn't believe he had to explain this. Because Ethan Cole is the CEO. Richard stopped breathing. Around him, laughter continued. Music played. Champagne glasses clinked. But his world suddenly sounded distant. What does he look like? Michael answered immediately. Early 30s. Dark hair. Usually wears simple suits. And he often travels with his daughter. Richard's face turned white. Vanessa noticed instantly. Dad? Richard ignored her. A horrible realization crashed into him. His hands began shaking. No. Michael continued. He arrived already? Richard whispered. Oh God. What happened? Richard couldn't answer. Because for the first time in decades, Richard Harrington understood exactly how badly he had misjudged someone. Minutes later, chaos erupted. Staff ran through the venue. Executives searched every corner of the estate. Phones rang nonstop. Guests exchanged confused looks. The bride thought something terrible had happened. The groom looked panicked. Richard and Vanessa practically sprinted toward the parking area. But Ethan was gone. The empty parking space felt like a death sentence. Vanessa's confidence disappeared. Dad? Richard wasn't listening. He was calling. Again. And again. And again. No answer. Because Ethan had already driven away. Lily sat quietly in the passenger seat. She stared out the window. Finally she asked a question. Dad? Yes? Why were they mean? Ethan's heart broke. Children never ask why people are kind. Only why they're cruel. He kept his eyes on the road. Sometimes people judge what they see. That's not fair. No. It isn't. Lily nodded thoughtfully. Then she said something that stayed with Ethan forever. They looked rich. They are. Then why did they act poor? Ethan blinked. What do you mean? She looked at him. Because kind people seem richer. For several seconds he couldn't speak. Then he smiled. Because wisdom sometimes comes from the smallest voices. Back at the wedding, panic intensified. The Harrington expansion project depended heavily on Ethan's investment firm. Without the deal, years of planning would collapse. Banks would reconsider financing. Shareholders would panic. Competitors would attack. Billions in future revenue suddenly hung in the balance. Richard finally reached Ethan. The call connected. Mr. Cole. Silence. Richard swallowed. I owe you an apology. Ethan remained calm. I see. What happened today was unacceptable. It was. I didn't know who you were. The response arrived immediately. I know. Richard closed his eyes. Because somehow that answer felt worse. Ethan wasn't angry. Anger passes. Disappointment remains. Richard tried again. Please return. No. Can we discuss this? We already did. Richard felt desperation rising. The deal. The deal can wait. Please. Ethan glanced at Lily. She was drawing in a notebook. Completely unaware that billion-dollar futures were being negotiated around her. No, Richard. The use of his first name hit hard. Very hard. Powerful men rarely hear rejection. Especially not from younger men. Especially not from men they just insulted. Richard lowered his voice. What can I do to make this right? Ethan finally answered. Tell me something. Anything. If I wasn't wealthy. Richard's heart sank. Ethan continued. If I wasn't useful. If I wasn't important. Would you still be apologizing? Silence. A brutal silence. Because both men knew the answer. Richard couldn't respond. The call ended. The wedding continued. But nobody celebrated. Not really. The humiliation story spread through the venue. Then through the company. Then through executive circles. By Monday morning, half of Wall Street had heard about it. A billionaire family had insulted a man controlling a $900 million investment. And that man walked away. Financial media loved the story. Investors hated it. Shareholders demanded explanations. The Harrington stock price fell. Not catastrophically, but enough to hurt. Enough to create fear. Enough to make everyone nervous. Weeks passed. Richard attempted multiple meetings. All rejected. Vanessa sent apologies. Ignored. Lawyers called. Nothing. Then one rainy Thursday, something unexpected happened. Ethan received a visitor. Richard Harrington. Alone. No assistants. No lawyers. No executives. Just a 70-year-old billionaire standing outside Ethan's office. The receptionist nearly fainted. Richard asked for 5 minutes. Ethan agreed. Inside the office, either man spoke for several moments. Finally, Richard placed something on the desk. A handwritten letter. Not typed. Not prepared by attorneys. Handwritten. Ethan looked surprised. Richard nodded. I wrote it myself. Then he stood. Read it later. That's it. That's it. Ethan studied him. No speech? No negotiation. No pressure. Richard smiled sadly. I spent my entire life buying solutions. He looked out the window. It took me 70 years to learn some mistakes can't be purchased away. Then he left. The letter remained unopened for hours. When Ethan finally read it that evening, he discovered something unexpected. No excuses. No justifications. No explanations. Only accountability. Richard admitted every mistake. Every assumption. Every act of arrogance. Every failure. And at the bottom was a single sentence. I am ashamed that my grandchildren witnessed me treating another human being that way. Ethan read it twice. Then 3 times. For the first time, he believed the apology. 2 months later, another meeting occurred. Private. Quiet. No cameras. No press. No contracts on the table. Just conversation. Richard listened more than he spoke. Vanessa attended too. Tears appeared when she apologized directly to Lily. The little girl simply smiled. It's okay. Adults often struggle to forgive. Children frequently do it in seconds. That day changed everything. Not because of the deal. Because of the lesson. 3 weeks later, the $900 million partnership was signed. But the agreement contained a condition nobody expected. A substantial percentage of profits would fund scholarships for single-parent families. Another portion would support leadership programs focused on character development. Not image. Not status. Character. Reporters eventually asked Ethan why he returned to the deal. His answer became famous. People think success reveals character. It doesn't. It reveals opportunities. The real test is what someone does after failure. Years later, the scholarship program helped thousands of families. The partnership generated billions. The companies thrived. But the most important moment never appeared in headlines. It happened during a private dinner. Richard's youngest grandson asked Ethan a simple question. How did you become so successful? The room expected business advice. Investment secrets. Leadership principles. Instead, Ethan pointed toward Lily. Now older. Smiling across the table. I learned something from my daughter. Everyone listened. Ethan continued. Money can buy respect. Power can demand attention. Success can attract admiration. But kindness is the only thing that makes people truly wealthy. The room fell silent. Including Richard. Because he knew better than anyone how expensive that lesson had been. And how close he had come to losing everything before finally learning it.